Sponsors are everywhere in football. On the front of the club shirt, on the back of it, even on the sleeves. Logos appear at the side of the pitch and on the backdrops for post-match interviews. It's no secret that sponsorship and sports go hand in hand, and the equation is simple. Clubs need money to build stadiums, to buy players, to be competitive and remain relevant. In return, sponsors get to put their logos everywhere and market their products, so it makes sense for them. But why are dictatorships doing the same? Why are countries investing in football? There's more to sponsorship than just economics. How different would it be if we exactly knew what's truly behind the money? Many countries, especially those with authoritarian governments, have been heavily spending in football. Governments know that investing money in sports can make them look good. It's what's known as sports washing.
Sports washing, which is to say the attempt by a government to whitewash, to cleanse, to project a more positive image of itself than is accurate, really. An alternative version of events, as it were. This is nothing new. Sport is powerful, and it can be used for nefarious ends. If you're looking at how governments have used sport, I would say that sport has always been used. I mean, you could go further back, you go back into Roman times to look at how sport's been used to, to serve a political purpose. It's a way for oppressive governments to rebrand themselves. Qatar is one of the best examples. The tiny but oil-rich Gulf state has spent millions, not only buying a team, but bankrolling its record transfers, founding a sports TV channel, and even obtaining the rights to host a World Cup tournament. But it's a different story behind the scenes. The country has been accused of multiple human rights violations. Qatar has a serious problem, like the other Gulf states, is the violation of migrant workers' rights. The treatment of migrant workers in the Gulf and in Qatar is abominable. Some people have talked about it being a form of modern-day slavery, and this has become far more visible because of its successful bid to host the 2022 World Cup. They brought in hundreds of thousands, millions of migrant workers to make that possible, essentially overhauling their entire infrastructure and building a lot of new football stadiums.
The question of the guest workers is definitely a complex question. There is no question about our commitment when it comes to their rights.
There has been over the years plenty of question about your commitment.
Fair enough. I mean, those were basically based on some media campaigns, etc. But
they're based on the truth.
No.
They're based on the lousy conditions in which these migrant workers had to operate.
And we acknowledge that. And we acknowledge that. As a matter of fact, the most recent Amnesty International report, we have welcomed that. Human Rights Watch are welcome to Doha on a regular basis, and we receive their criticism very well. Despite pressure from the international community, Qatar's atrocious human rights record continues, but its financial muscle has caused many countries to look the other way. So even if you want to ignore all these problems, let's say you're just a football fan and you only care about football, well, they're also destroying the sport as we know it too. Let's dig deeper. Qatar's first major involvement in football was back in 2011 when they bought Paris Saint-Germain and started pumping millions to bring talent to the French capital. Most notably, orchestrating the two most expensive transfers in world football to date. These massive expenditures have translated to PSG's domination of French football. The club have been crowned Ligue 1 champions 7 times in the past 8 years. The French league, well, some say it's a joke.
This is a big part of the investment of Qatar, investing in Paris Saint-Germain, because today, honestly, everybody talk about Paris Saint-Germain and about Qatar, So I think it's something give huge exposure.
And these ridiculous sums of money have turned the transfer market on its head, meaning that fewer clubs will be able to keep up and compete. PSG also hold winter training camps in Qatar, but rather than benefit from warm weather training, the trip works more to showcase the country. Don't forget, Qatar's main goal isn't having the world's best football team. It's cleaning up their image. So the country has also invested in other teams. Take FC Barcelona. They proudly boasted having a 111-year tradition of not having a paid shirt sponsor. But that all changed in 2011, once Qatar offered the club 150 million euros to display the name of the Middle Eastern country for 5 seasons. Is it really worth all that money? In Qatar, there's no doubt.
There is so much loyalty in football that once we get associated with a football club, it will boost our passenger appeal, and at the same time it will give us the footprint to expand our footprint into other parts of the world where we are preparing to go.
Qatar have gone on to sponsor the shirts of Italian side Roma and Belgian club Eupen. But perhaps the country's most important shirt sponsorship deal at the moment is with German giants Bayern Munich. Qatar Airways, the state-owned airline, pay Bayern 10 million euros a year, and in return, the club fly to Doha for mid-season training camps. They've been doing so since 2011.
Some Bayern supporters have a big problem with that.
They're against their club being linked with Qatar due to the country's human rights record. During matches, fans have held banners protesting the club's dealings with the country. And that's happened on multiple occasions.
They haven't just expressed discontent, they've become actively involved in these issues. They've held events, they've spoken to councillors in Munich, they've attempted to engage the club directly on these issues with very clear asks on what they want the club to do.
But for the club's higher-ups, it's business as usual, going as far as defending their position.
Seitdem Bayern München Partner von Katar ist nachweislich eine Entwicklung in Sachen Menschen- und Arbeitsrechte im positiven Sinne passiert. Natürlich lassen Sie mich bitte ausreden, dann können Sie nachher noch dazu ja. Wir haben erreicht, dass sich viele Dinge verändern durch den Fußball.
Yeah, it's not true. It's dangerously untrue. The reality is that it's killed lots of migrant workers. So when people like Rummenigge put these lines out there, it's dangerous. It would be far more helpful if they would have a more realistic assessment of the problem, or indeed, if they would use the influence to actually call for reforms that would help migrant workers.
And we don't even need to travel far from Qatar to find the next case of sports washing. Their neighbors in the Middle East, Abu Dhabi and the United Arab Emirates, was even a step ahead as they bought Premier League side Manchester City back in 2008. The Abu Dhabi United Group transformed the club overnight into the world's richest football club. The Emirate has spent more than £1 billion in transfers since buying the club. The investment has been controversial, even until today, regarding UEFA's financial fair play rules, but the cash has delivered positive results on the pitch. Man City have won 4 Premier League titles since.
Just like Qatar, the UAE isn't interested in financial profit. They're after something else.
The Emirate has virtually zero democracy and has repressive freedom of speech laws. 90% of the population are migrants, and the vast majority of them are paid the bare minimum and live in poor conditions. Manchester City's success gives Abu Dhabi a chance to offer an alternative story about the country to the rest of the world. The country paints itself as a top holiday destination.
That's also quite easy to do when, football stars from all over Europe vacation there.
Today, Abu Dhabi's investment in Man City has turned into something bigger. City Football Group, which owns different clubs across the globe. City Football Group gives Abu Dhabi a platform to consolidate and strengthen their political influence.
We have an ambition as a football group to have an organization that is global and that will have multiple clubs as part of it. So I would say when the opportunity arises, and we are looking at opportunities, you can expect us also to add to the number of clubs we have already within the organization.
All of their clubs wear similar colors, have similar badges, they even have the same sponsor, Etihad Airways. And that's just one of 2 of the UAE's state-owned airlines. They're both making big moves in football.
Emirates is going after the European elites.
Real Madrid, the world's most famous and most successful club. What's on their shirt? Emirates. The Dubai-based airline has a myriad of sponsorships in football. Besides being Real Madrid's main sponsor, Emirates has deals with clubs such as AC Milan, Benfica, and Arsenal. Emirates have the longest-running sponsorship deal in the Premier League, as they have sponsored Arsenal since 2006. The club's home ground even bears the airline's name, the Emirates Stadium. And that won't change anytime soon. The stadium's naming rights will last until 2028.
You might imagine that Arsenal fans would be one of the groups of supporters who might protest against the involvement of Emirates. So it's not like the government of Dubai owns Arsenal. It partly relates to the fact that Dubai's international reputation has been normalised over many years, long before the term sports washing was coined.
And frankly, that's the best case scenario for these type of sponsors. Arsenal fans have gotten so used to the name throughout the years that it's almost synonymous with their club.
The logo no longer represents what it once did. It is seen in a positive light by a large majority. Arsenal have welcomed the money, as they've been able to buy star players, making a lot of Arsenal fans happy. One of those fans is Rwandan president Paul Kagame, who often tweets his views on the club. Although Rwanda is one of the poorest countries in the world and receives financial aid from the European Union, the African country signed a sponsorship deal worth millions with Arsenal. Since 2018, Visit Rwanda has been displayed on the sleeves of the Arsenal shirt. Rwanda have defended the agreement, saying Rwanda's economy will benefit from tourism. As part of the deal, Arsenal players hold training camps in Rwanda, and the country's logo appears at the side of the pitch.
The Arsenal club takes a message with them that Rwanda is a place that is at peace with itself and other Africans and ready for investments.
According to Human Rights Watch, freedom of expression as well as freedom of the press in Rwanda is very limited. Critics of Kagame, who has been in power for more than 20 years, say the deal is an example of an autocrat indulging a private passion while subsidizing one of the richest clubs in world football. They argue that the nation could have found a better use for the money.
Whatever people say, they are entitled to say that, but I'm also entitled to do whatever I think benefits my country.
Despite criticism, the African country inked a new deal at the end of 2019, this time with a new club, none other than Qatar's Paris Saint-Germain.
This is a move that is strictly for their benefits, strictly for job creation, strictly for economic growth, strictly for improving the export, strictly improving the image and the perception of the country.
So this is a trend. This is not just about the Gulf states. I think it's reasonable to point to them as perhaps the most obvious example and the most naked example of sports washing, but they're by no means the only dangerous actors getting involved.
It's even affecting the game's governing bodies. Ever heard of SOCAR? Since 2013, they have been partners with UEFA. The old company belongs to the small country of Azerbaijan, which has been ruled by the Aliyev family since the early 90s.
However, UEFA insists that they sign a contract with SOCAR and not the state of Azerbaijan.
But in reality, there's very little to set them apart. The company makes up 90% of the country's exports, and the revenues account for half the national budget. Azerbaijan also sponsored Spanish club Atletico Madrid from 2012 through 2014. Its capital, Baku, hosted the 2019 Europa League final. With both finalists, Chelsea and Arsenal, being based in London, that meant most fans had to travel about 4,000 kilometers to attend the match, an expensive logistical nightmare. Unlike most finals, it was not sold out. Is that the atmosphere UEFA want in football? Not the best way of showcasing the oil-rich country.
Azerbaijan could learn a thing or two from Russia. When it comes to sports washing, Russia are leading the way, and they do it through the gas company Gazprom.
On paper, Gazprom is a private company, but since 2005, the Russian government has owned more than half of the company's shares. Bundesliga side Schalke have a long-standing deal with the Russian company. The sponsorship was first established in 2007 in a deal worth 150 million euros. Gazprom also owns Russian club Zenit St. Petersburg. The old conglomerate bought the club in 2005, making the club a major force in Russian football. Gazprom's investment meant Zenit could make significant moves in the transfer market, bringing in players like Claudio Marchisio, Axel Witsel, Hulk, and most recently, Malcolm.
I think it is the ownership model that we have to be more worried about. When these states take full control of football clubs and use them for political ends, that's, I think, when existential issues come into play, by which I mean, are they going to ruin clubs and are they going to ruin the game more generally?
Gazprom uses the club and its players for multiple PR stunts, such as having them play football on an offshore drilling rig. These images help glorify Gazprom's Arctic expeditions and downplay the environmental impact caused by oil extraction. As well as owning and pumping money into clubs, Gazprom is also a major player in the Champions League. The partnership with UEFA began in 2012 and it was extended until 2021.
Russia knows how to play the game. The 2018 World Cup, powered by none other than Gazprom, was Russia's crown jewel.
What you saw in the run-up to 2018 was a lot of coverage of what was happening in Russia, a lot of coverage of the rights abuses, a lot of interest in that, and a lot of engagement in it. And I think what the Qataris will have noticed was how that all vanished as soon as the first whistle blew. And I think everyone became captivated by the football. The Qataris know that if they can just get to that first whistle, then they're over the line. And then they'll look to hold a successful tournament to cement their reputation. And they'll hope that they'll get a reputational bounce from that. And history would suggest that they will.
So what do you think? Is sports washing a big problem in football, or is it just the future? Tell us in the comments.